So when things started getting a little crazy a couple of weeks ago and lockdowns really started to take place in most places, I was hoping to do a more regular things using teleconferences and things like YouTube Live or Instagram, and I thought maybe I could help push that conversation within our kayaking and outdoor community. I ended up getting sick along with the rest of my family. Everybody's doing better, luckily. And I'd really like to say thank you to everyone that's on the front lines right now, helping out and keeping people healthy here in New York and just everywhere around the world. It's really extraordinary what's happening and how people are confronting it. But that's not the point of the video. What I'm hoping to do is looking at our channels, posting old videos, posting old photos, talking about plans that we're making in the future. It is a tough time at the time, but I think it's also very helpful for all of us to continue pushing each other and bringing positive vibes and positive thoughts and thinking about all the wonderful things we're going to do once we get back to whatever is going to be our new level of normal. So one of the things I was thinking of doing just to keep things flowing, trying to answer a question a day or a question every couple of days. So maybe that could be a fun way of putting out content that could be fun. The question today is from I'm Sealing. They asked, how long should a kayak be for sea kayaking? And can I also use a sea kayak on big rivers and lakes? So I thought I'd cover some of those basic requirements that I've been taught, what sea kayaks, sit-in sea kayaks should have in order for you to safely go out into coastal waters. These are not the only kayaks that can be used in coastal waters. There's sit-on-top kayaks, there's surf skis. There's so many different types of kayaks that also would be okay to be on the water. But if we're talking about our generic sit-in sea kayaks, these are some of the things that you should look for. The minimum length I've been taught has been 14 feet. The reason for that is also that they should have two airtight hatches, one in the front, one in the back. And so 14 feet in a sea kayak with two hatches will provide you with buoyancy in case your cockpit that's flooded with water, you can still float and you can still stay inside the kayak and paddle it. Sure, you'll be sloshing around with lots of water in the cockpit. And you should try it out, see what it feels like to paddle around with a cockpit full of water. You can turn it upside down, you can do a T-rescue, you can empty it out of water, you can use a bilge pump and just get that water out, but you will stay afloat. Perimeter lines, so those are going to be lines that go all the way around the kayak in the front and the back, so that if for any reason you fall out, you can still grab onto it anywhere around the kayak. Or if you're rescuing someone else, you just have to be able to get a hold of that kayak. Like for example, when we do rescues on skin-on frames, it's always a bit harder to maneuver it. Sure, there's techniques of how to do it, but if you just have those running lines in the front and the back, it just makes it so much easier to move the kayak around when you're on the water. And same thing, if you fall out, just to be able to put your hand on it and hold on to it. Another thing you can look for would be a cockpit where you have several points of contact. So you'll have foot pegs, you'll have thigh braces, you'll usually have a way to get your hips involved, and you'll have a back band or seat or something behind you as well. So depending on how you set up your kayak, you can be in control of the movement of a kayak. And that's extremely helpful in being able to detach what your upper body and your lower body are doing. In terms of upper body, focusing on either propulsion or doing bracing so that you don't go over, but at the same time being able to have your hips control what is happening with the kayaks, whether you're edging or you're leaning, or these are things that as you move your kayak around, it'll affect how your kayak responds to what you're doing in order to get around, or in order to turn, or in order to stop, or in order to stay upright or come back up if you're upside down. You'll want to have a way of dealing with winds. And so usually that means having either a skeg or a rudder. Usually depending on the way a kayak is designed, it'll try to turn upwind. So a skeg is a way of counteracting that depending on how much of the skeg you use, and it'll also help you go in a straight line. A rudder can also help you counteract wind, but it'll also help you So let's say you don't want to alter your forward stroke, let's say if you're racing or something like that, then the rudder would allow you to turn the kayak using your feet instead of having to alter the way you're paddling with your arms. But that's just one example of how a rudder could be used. But yes, the kayak should have something that allows you to deal with wind, irrelevant of what direction you want to paddle in. So let's recap: at least 14 feet, perimeter lines, hatches fore and aft, and 5 points of contact if possible. These are all things that usually are a part of a desirable sit-in sea kayak. And now the other two questions is, can they be used in big rivers and lakes? Absolutely. You just have to remember that the longer the sea kayak, the harder it'll be to turn usually. Let's say there's parts of the Delaware River that is very wide and there's not much current, and that would be fine. My wife and I have paddled it with our sea kayaks and it was great. We had a great time. Just remember also whatever material you have versus where you're paddling. And for lakes, absolutely. One thing I will say though is my wife and I used to go to Split Rock Reservoir in New Jersey, which is beautiful. It's a wonderful place to paddle. And in our recreational kayaks, it would take us a long time to get to the end of the reservoir and back. Eventually, when we switched over to sea kayaks, we brought them over one day and we got there in like 20, 30 minutes and we couldn't believe just how much faster we were. And just like with coastal kayaking, if you have a really big lake, wind and weather can affect what you're doing very much. Just always keep an eye on what the weather's doing and if it's the right time to go out and paddle. So I have a couple more questions I'm going to try to tackle every so often. If you have any other questions, please do send them my way. If you have anything to add on things that you've discovered or you think are appropriate for coastal sea kayaking, please comment below. Subscribe if you like. I'm always trying to put these videos out. As always, look for more Kayak Hipster. Please be safe out there. See you next time.